Dear friends, welcome to the webcast. Everything you ever wanted to know about sex, but were afraid to ask. I'm your host today. I'm Lana Cole, a licensed marriage and family therapist practicing in Orange, California. I'm your host on the Facebook group, Sizzling Love. I'm also an expert on your tango and Quora, and I'm very honored today to welcome Dr. Lori Bisbey, Bisbey, who's joining us from London. Exciting, incredible. It will be a very special interview where she will answer your questions. Questions about sex and intimacy. And I have to introduce Dr. Lori Beth a little bit. She's a psychologist and sex and intimacy coach with 30 years experience working with individuals, couples, and polyamorous groups to help them explore and express their authentic sexual selves. She hosts two amazing podcasts that I highly recommend you to listen to: The A to Z to Sex and Sex Spoken Here, to further her mission to take conversations about sex, sexuality, and gender from the shadows into the light of the day. We met, it was an exciting meeting. We met in April at your tango conference. It was great, right?
Yeah.
In New York, where, we both happened to be writing for your tango, and I was totally captivated by her personality, so vibrant, so full of energy, joy. Like, when she speaks, you can ask her any questions about anything and you will feel very comfortable. You will experience it today. And we also later figured out that we actually studied the same school, which is exciting, different years, but we went to the same school, the California School of Professional Psychology. Okay, so let's go to your questions. So there will be questions mainly from my group, but some of them from my patients, a couple of them. Okay, so Greg, a member of our group, says that he is now finally on the third attempt. He's very happy in his marriage. He's been married for 19 years. And, we can be only happy for him, right? However, he is 57 and his wife is 12 years younger, okay? And his sexual desire is waning kind of with age, and she wants more, which is not uncommon, right? So he would want to know how to naturally boost his desires and how to reignite their sex life.
So sometimes desire is waning, but actually when you get into the sex, you have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes desire is waning, and when you get into the sex, you don't have a good time. And there's, for women, there may be dryness and problems with pain, and for men, there may be erectile dysfunction. So it depends on what he's asking about. If he's just talking desire.
Yeah, he was talking about desire.
Right. So if he's just talking desire, my advice would be to go with hers.
Mm-hmm. So kind of like just follow her.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Right? Just do it. And if she's concerned about the fact that she's always having to initiate, then he could set a task for himself to initiate, even if he's not really in the mood.
Like schedule type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want it to be a rigid schedule because that can be difficult. But yeah. So, like if she prefers sex a few times a week, but they negotiate that, once a week is fine. To have it in his head that he needs to initiate as well.
Right.
And then just see what develops.
Okay.
If he's still feeling like he can't initiate because he's not in the mood.
Right.
Erotica.
Well, what about her initiating?
Well, she can initiate. I mean, I'm happy with her initiating. That's fine. But sometimes what I hear women saying is, I don't want to be the one always to initiate.
Always, yeah, right.
Right. If she's happy initiating, then I'm encouraging him to just say yes and go with it. If that's not doing it, if the sex isn't enjoyable, then consider reading erotica. And what can be fun is reading to each other.
Right.
If you enjoy pornography, watching that together.
Sure.
If you don't enjoy pornography, there's a whole bunch of movies that aren't quite
pornography, but there.
Very exciting. And I've got an ebook called 74 Movies.
Oh,
which
yes.
is a list and links to all of the movies that I found can be quite exciting, but they're not quite pornography. So there's lots of things that he can draw on in order to bring desire up.
Right. Most importantly, as I hear from you, is just not to forget about it, right?
Yeah.
Not to make her feel disappointed that it's not happening, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. So I have several more questions about difference of age between the partners. Like one young lady is asking, what could be her attitude? She doesn't know what to think because her husband, approximately 15 years older than she is, suggests bringing the third person, a woman, in their bedroom. So is it alarming or is it a positive sign?
It depends on how you feel about it. I mean, to me, it's not alarming. I see lots of people in relationships where there's some form of ethical non-monogamy. So ethical non-monogamy is when you discuss it and you're honest with each other about what you want and you make agreements about it. So he could just want to spice things up.
Possible. But my feeling was that she was kind of shocked by it. So she couldn't understand, like, why is it that, like, you are older than me, stuff like that. Why am I not enough for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, again, it really depends on your orientation. If you're a monogamist, that is certainly how you're going to feel. I don't think it's about you not being enough, but him wanting some difference. Which isn't the same thing.
Right.
So if you're a straightforward monogamist and you absolutely don't want anybody else involved in your relationship, then you can look at other ways of spicing things up. If he wants to introduce somebody in as a way to spice it up, and it doesn't, once you get over the being surprised, you could actually consider that. That can be a lot of fun, but you need to consider it. It needs to be something you're clear you want to do, and not, I would say to her, don't feel pressured into something because he wants to do it.
For you, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you need to discuss it with him, understand his reasons, right? And then decide for yourself.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. Now, another group member, also a young lady, she has a different dilemma. She wanted to spice things up in the bedroom. For example, by different, like you said, by different ways. She wanted, for example, to use, cold champagne while performing oral sex on him. And he was shocked. Said, oh my God, what are you thinking about? Like, he was completely not ready for that. What to do?
I think one of the things that couples run into is they don't actually talk about these things before they try them. So they don't get the reaction they want from a partner because the partner is completely shocked. Whereas if they actually had a conversation about it, they would be more likely to get a positive response.
Right, but sometimes, like Gottman say that it's more difficult to actually talk about sex than actually do sex.
Yes.
So you have to be at the level of intimacy when you're comfortable discussing everything, right?
Yes, and so what I tell people is you need to work on that. I agree that it's more difficult to talk about sex than to do sex. But if something's important to you sexually,
right,
and you introduce it because you don't feel you can talk about it and you get a really bad reaction from your partner, that can have really devastating emotional consequences.
Right.
And I've seen people who will never bring it up again. And their partner's reaction wasn't never. They had an unguarded, shocked reaction.
So she should ask him like, honey, what do you think if we do something unusual today? Something like that.
Yeah, have a conversation about it. I think, probably the conversation is, I'm wanting to spice things up. Do you want to talk about each way I might want to do this, or do you want me to surprise you?
Okay. Yeah, because her reaction was like, oh my God, like I wanted to make things better, but in fact, like he's so conservative, like how can I ever try something new again? And that probably closed a lot of roads there, right? Just that.
Yeah, which is why conversation is the first place to start. He may have freaked out, and then thinking about it later, it might be okay.
Right, it might be, oh my God, I missed something really fun, right?
I could have had a really good time there and I blew it.
Right. So, but do you recommend talking about that completely on unrelated time, like different time, like, not connected to sex time, like?
Yes. Yeah, not in the bedroom. Sit down and have the conversation in a neutral spot in the house. Don't make it like intense and serious and because that just freaks everybody out. But say, listen, can we have a chat?
Yeah.
Make sure your partner has the time to chat. One of the mistakes people make is they want to talk about it, and he's just come home from work or she's just come home from work. They're tired, they're decompressing.
Exactly. They're not in the mode even to understand what you're talking about, right?
That's right. And so you get a really lousy response because person doesn't have time, or it's the 5 minutes before they're going out in the morning. Take a time, set the time aside, ask your partner to set the time aside to have a chat. Tell them it's nothing horrible, so they don't panic.
Would it be also a possibility like to say, look, we all have some fantasies, maybe you have something, maybe we can describe it, maybe you can prepare a little bit for that. Maybe you can describe yours, I describe mine, and then we agree what is acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, and if you're really uncomfortable talking with the person, text them.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, technology, right.
Text them, email them so that they have it in front of them. They have time to think about their response. And then you can, set the time to talk.
Yeah, that's a very good advice. Thank you. Okay, so the next question is interesting question from Brian, another member of the group. Is it possible to bring a partner to orgasm without touching their genitalia? Let's say doing foreplay or as a separate sexual act.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There are people who reach orgasm, men and women, through nipple stimulation. There are people who reach orgasm through physical stimulation of just their skin. And there are people who reach orgasm without being touched.
Just from the brain, from the imagining things.
Well, that's where it comes from.
Right. Especially
that's the biggest erogenous zone. And so you can learn, and some women and some men do that naturally. But you can learn how to do it.
But you need to explore, right, with your partner, what zones would be that would cause some, right? And the way of stimulation, also not every possible way of stimulation would work for that, right?
No, but and also that it's something that's usually a culmination of stimulation. So although there are people who can, talk about coming on command, there are people who can do that. They're able to do that because they've learned to do it.
Right. Like 4 stars, right?
Yeah, it's a conditioned response.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so if you're going to try something like this, don't expect it to just be easy and happen. Because for many people it isn't. You actually have to practice. You actually have to work up to it.
would you recommend, like, because a lot of people are ticklish, or they say, oh, don't do this, don't do that, like how to go about that, how to find it. It can take, like, I imagine, very long time to go over every cell of the body, right? Are there any typical, like, body zones that are more erogenic than the others?
I mean, I think, the thing is that your skin is actually the biggest erogenous zone in your body. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, some people are ticklish in different spots, but different kinds of skin stroking can really produce intense sensation. Mm-hmm. Breasts and nipples, both for men and women, are particularly sensitive. The ass is incredibly sensitive and is often ignored. Mm-hmm. Because people think, well, I don't want to have anal sex. Well, you don't have to have anal sex to stimulate the area, but also the flesh on the ass.
Right.
So if you're going away from the actual anus, the flesh on the ass is also very sensitive. There's an area on the bottom of your bottom and where your thighs connect that the same nerves that run through your genitals run through that area. So that's often called the sweet spot. And so for people who do things like spanking, that's a place to hit because the pleasure mixes with pain more easily there.
In the very bottom.
Yeah, but if you're not into spanking, you can still use that spot to stimulate someone.
Sure, and I read somewhere that for men, especially the inner thigh, the upper part of the inner thigh can be very erogenic.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yep, incredibly erogenous. So the lips,
maybe also the ears.
Sometimes the ears, the neck.
So you just kind of have to explore, kind of have to use a lot of time, right, to explore. Like whether it's like with your fingers, with some feather, or with whatever else, right?
Right, and to me, the fact that you have to explore is not a bad thing. We often rush through sex. Foreplay is
whatever. Yeah.
Foreplay by definition is a means to an end, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So we usually dismiss that part. Some people talk about it. The term these days is outer course instead of intercourse. People have outer course, which is anything that doesn't involve penetration. And so it's really worth spending the time and exploring your partner's body and finding out what turns them on, what doesn't turn them on. But it's better to explore than to ask questions in that circumstance, because people will often dismiss things.
They may not know themselves also.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. They'll often dismiss things without really knowing. Like sometimes, because an area is very sensitive, a person will find it difficult to allow that to be stimulated for any length of time. So they don't get past that initial, it's too much sensation into the really nice sensation. They just dismiss it. So
yeah, it could be like, oh, don't touch me there, it's kind of ticklish, but if you maybe change the way you stroke or something, it could be very, it's like pain and pleasure go together type of thing. Different sensations, they're very similar, right? They're very close in the brain. So
yeah, so you can, if you can get through that, it can actually turn out to be incredibly pleasurable.
Right, maybe because of that.
Yeah. And so instead of saying, what do you know about yourself? It's like, well, you allow me to explore is probably better. And then you have to listen to what your partner says. I mean, if they say, no, that's too much, you back off. But it can be a lot of fun to set that up as a time. And that way you can figure out which areas are more likely to bring about orgasm without...
Yeah, it's great. And you said that some people can condition themselves even to do it on their own, right?
Yes. Yes.
Without touching anything at all.
Yes. In all through the brain.
Right.
All through the brain. And the other thing is that if you deny yourself an orgasm for a bit, you have a better chance of making this happen.
Okay.
You make sure you are getting turned on by erotica, by conversation, by pornography, however you do it without touch, or even with touch, but deny yourself an orgasm for a period of time before you get together. And then if you're desperate,
Right.
Orgasm, it's easier.
Okay.
Without being touched on your genitalia, because you've gotten to that point already.
Mm-hmm.
And so all you need to do is go over the end rather than starting from cold, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting. Is there any kind of literature where you can read, maybe recommend something about like the brain as the main organ, sexual organ, something like that?
I mean, I've written blogs and things. Okay. I'm sure there are some books that are worth looking at. I don't have the list to hand, but there are some things that are worth looking at.
Yeah.
One author that comes to mind, if people are willing to get into something that's a little bit heavy philosophically, is to look at Mantak Chia's work about orgasm retention. So actually the idea is to not reach orgasm. This is something that there's a system for women and a system for men. And there's orgasm without ejaculation for men.
Right, that's
so
like
it's a full body.
Do that, right? That's
and so that's full body orgasm.
Right.
And the same is true for women. And so that's something that people might want to consider.
That's very interesting.
Look at that. And there's a whole system of breathing and things like that can bring you to that. I don't know that there's been anything. I suppose Urban Tantra is a little bit more Western.
Yeah.
Is another book, but I don't know that there's been anything really written from a Western perspective, which may mean that I don't
think it's a Western thing altogether, right? We have to learn from the Eastern people a lot, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe that's kind of one of the things to go on my list of things to write, because it is a different perspective, and sometimes people don't want to delve into the philosophy, but they do want to understand the techniques.
Right, but you still have to a little bit delve into philosophy to understand at least where it comes from, right? Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people are interested and also kind of confused about the concept of open relationship, you know? Like, they don't quite understand what it means. Like, one lady, Ellen, is asking, like, literally her words, when is cheating and not sharing a partner? Like, if you talk to your partner about opening up a relationship and you sleep with somebody else, okay? Or if a partner has a much higher sex drive than another partner. Or even if you just have some fantasies about somebody else.
Okay, so let's be clear about this.
Let's be clear.
Cheating is something that happens when you lie to your partner about your sexual activity. That doesn't include activity in your head.
Right.
Everybody has fantasies.
Things are head, you know? Who doesn't kill somebody in their head, right?
Everybody has fantasies. That's not cheating. Because you fantasize about another person, just make it perfectly, absolutely, 100% normal. Right? Most people who are in long-term relationships fantasize about other people.
Yeah.
Right? So that's not cheating. Cheating involves deception. It always involves deception. So, I mean, people talk about emotional affairs. You can have an emotional affair if you are deceiving your partner.
Right.
If you're talking to somebody else about your full inner world, and you're not talking to your partner about that, and your partner asks questions about this person you're talking to and you lie, that's considered cheating. But if we're looking at physical things and moving into open relationships, even people in open relationships can cheat.
Oh. If they didn't agree that, let's say, like there will be like somebody else, like second or third, and then go with the fourth person, that would be
So there are all different types of open relationships. They run from what's called monogamish, which is when you agree, like kissing someone is okay, but nothing else. You agree one small thing, or maybe you agree that you're going to invite this friend to be part of a threesome once, and then that's it, right? So you're really monogamous most of the time. All the way to what's called relationship anarchy, which is when people really try and have no relationship structure, which I'm not going to talk about.
It's like part of like a group, like goes on, like involving a lot of people.
It can do. It can also be a solo thing. So it's more a philosophical concept. And I think what your folks are asking about is like, well, actually, the kind of on the ground stuff. So when you're talking about open relationship, you're talking about sometimes you have a don't ask, don't tell policy.
And that would not be key.
No, if you've agreed it.
Okay, so can you explain it a little bit more? I think some people will be confused about that.
Okay, so as long as you agree something with your partner, you're not being deceptive. So then it's not cheating. So let's say one couple have an open have a polyamorous relationship, but they agree that they each have right of refusal for the other person's partners. Right? Because they're concerned that crazy people will end up in the relationship and they don't want to have to deal with drama. So they agree that, you know, Jane comes home and says she's met this great guy, Robert, and she wants to see him. And Jonathan has the option to say, I'm not okay with that. And they agree. And then the same is true. Jonathan has met some guy he wants to get involved with, and Jane has the option to say, I'm not comfortable with that person. Right? But the agreement is that before you sleep with somebody else, you have to check it out in the relationship.
Okay.
So if you go and sleep with somebody else and you don't tell, so if Jane went out and he said, I'm not happy with that person, right? He said, I don't like Robert. I'm not comfortable with him. I don't know what it is, but it bothers me.
Right.
If he goes and sleeps with Robert and sees Robert, that's an affair still.
Okay.
Right? That's cheating because it's deceptive and it's against the rules.
But what if you said this, don't ask, don't...
Right. So don't ask, don't tell is where you say to each other, it's usually not all the time, okay? Because that gets, it's not workable. We say, it's kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Okay, okay.
Right? When you're on a business trip, you do what you want to do as long as you have safe sex.
Exactly.
I don't want to know about it. But the rule is, I'm not going to ask you about it. You don't tell me about it. But the rule is you can't stay in touch with people.
Right.
For example, a lot of times that's the rule. The rule is you do it there, you leave it there. So you don't exchange email. You don't post social media with this person. You don't stay in touch with the person. It's like a one-time thing.
Okay, okay. So, and there could be variations of this, I imagine, right?
Yes. Yes.
Like one person may say, like, I don't want to know, but, you know, we have an agreement that, you know, certain times a week or certain times a month, each one of us does whatever.
Yeah. Sometimes couples have a one date a month rule. So the last weekend of the month is Margaret's weekend.
Yeah.
And so sometimes she'll go out and he won't know if she had a date or not, but she'll go out. It's her weekend. And if she decides to sleep with someone, that's her business. It's some people where there's a mismatch of sex drives will say, the person who has the lower sex drive will say, I don't mind if you have sex with other people. I just don't want you to be involved in long-term relationships with them. Right? Sometimes, because they don't particularly want to be polyamorous. So it's, I don't mind if you go and have sex with people, but I don't want to have to deal with, you know, an emotional relationship and drama. And I don't want to know what you do. Except I want to know that you're having safe sex.
And you are safe altogether.
And you're safe. And that's it. That's all I care about. And so in those situations, the don't ask, don't tell works like the person will go out and do their thing. And their partner won't even necessarily know that they're doing that. And that's it. That's the line.
Right. Right. So the most important thing, as I hear it, is to make your own rules that you both agree to, right?
Yes, you have to make your own rules, and you have to be honest. And if your partner doesn't agree to something, you negotiate.
Right.
Not everybody's going to get everything they want.
Right. Especially in the beginning, I imagine, right? If one person wants to start something new and the other person is not ready for that, it takes time probably, right?
Yep. And I mean, in terms of learning more, one of the best books out there is called Rewriting the Rules.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by, I think the new edition is out, which will be Meg John Barker.
Mm-hmm.
If the new edition isn't out, it's Meg Barker.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a fantastic book.
Rewriting the Rules. Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Franklin Veaux, more than two. I think Franklin Veaux's is more than two.
Uh-huh.
Start getting authors and books confused in a minute, so I'm going to be careful. Anything by The Ethical Slut.
Uh-huh.
Fabulous book. Dossie Easton and Janet Hardy wrote that one, and I will not get that one confused. And there's a new version that's fab. So those are the kind of main things. Anything by Tristan Tamarino also. Those are the sort of main things that talk about opening up your relationship. And in fact, Tristan Tamarino's book is called Opening Up, and the different ways in which you can open up your relationship. I find that a lot of couples benefit from specific coaching around the area.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I when I see some of my clients, I just think that, well, if you like allow yourself to explore a little bit, all of your problems will go away. A lot of people, unfortunately, are not ready for that.
Yeah, no, and I think it's very useful.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to open up your relationship for the first time, to see a sex therapist or sex coach, relationship coach, somebody who deals with polyamory and open relationships regularly, to help you with the process of exploring what you want to do, what agreements you want to have, and sometimes even why you're choosing to open up. Because if you're choosing to open the relationship for the wrong reasons, it can really trash a relationship.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very good advice. And definitely educate yourself. It never hurts to learn more, right?
Yeah. And really, we're not talking about years of therapy there. We're talking about a specific piece of work.
Coaching, right. Mm-hmm. So there are many, many different people with many different stories and views. Another group member, Jason, has a completely different situation. Apparently he's trying to date women. He tried a lot of times, and it seems to him that they don't want to have sex. How weird is that, right? He says that I find that if it gets to sex, they love it, but they show, at least he perceives as they don't want to have sex. So I didn't quite understand what he wanted to ask you. So then he reorganized the question. He said, like, how to bring out a woman's sexuality without being perceived as vulgar. So maybe he like hints on that in a vulgar way. I'm not quite sure, But apparently that has a problem with women.
So have a straightforward conversation is how you do it, right? You've got to talk about sex.
Mm-hmm.
You have to talk about sex, preferably before you have it with someone.
Right.
I know that's an amazing concept.
Yeah, it truly is.
Well, it is in the heterosexual community. Mm-hmm. It's not in the heterosexual non-kink community. Sorry, people who are kinky and interested in BDSM and power exchange usually have conversations before they have any kind of sexual activity.
It's easier for them.
Well, it's not. It's actually not easier for them, but they've learned to talk about these things because otherwise they don't get their needs met.
Right.
Because you don't know whether the person you're interested in shares your kink.
Yeah, exactly.
So conversations are more common. You should be having the safe sex conversation, but a lot of people have that conversation 10 minutes before sex. So I encourage people to actually have a conversation about what you like and what you're interested in as part of dating. You might not have that the first date.
So, as I understand, he goes on a date with a person, and it seems to him that she's not like interested in having sex at all. But if eventually it gets to that, then he finds out it's a different thing, and it seems to me he perceives himself as a vulgar person, or he behaves in the kind of way that maybe seems vulgar to women or something like that. Maybe in the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really do need to kind of gauge when you have this conversation. Mm-hmm. If you are somebody who's polyamorous, kinky, bisexual, you need to have that conversation early on. Mm-hmm. Because if the person that you are wanting to be in a relationship with is not okay with any of these things, it's a deal breaker. Right. So that conversation has to happen relatively early.
But what if like a normal monogamous type of thing, and it's not like about the type of sex, it's just about like, the way I understand it, that he doesn't know how to even introduce the concept, like, would you be open at some point, or you just want to go to like restaurant and theater or whatever, Well,
I mean, I think you should start, it sounds like he needs to learn how to flirt.
Yeah, exactly. It's a psychological thing, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that, but you also need to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Once you can flirt, then having the conversation is easier because it becomes a natural thing. Mm-hmm. And don't try and have sex on the first date.
Yeah, right. So is there, like in the modern time, is there some kind of a concept? Because I hear from a lot of my clients, I have a rule of third date or something like that. Do you notice anything like that? Or it's like...
I don't have a rule. I don't have a rule because some people spend a lot of time talking before they actually meet. They've actually talked a lot and they meet in person. The person is exactly as they said they were, and they want to have sex that day. Who am I to tell them they shouldn't? It's not like,
Exactly. No, I mean, they themselves, I have a role.
Right. But, I mean, no, as far as I'm concerned, I think what I say to people is make the space to be able to talk about sex before having it. So you might end up kissing, but stop it there, not because of any kind of more moral thing, unless that's a thing, right? Unless, not because I think there's any moral thing involved, not because I think there's anything wrong with having sex on the first date, I don't, but because if you talk about sex first, you're going to have better sex.
Right. You know what to expect, right?
You'll know what the person likes and they'll know what you like, not everything, and if you're going to do that, don't talk about past people. Right? Well, John did the greatest thing, right? Yeah. Talk about the action, not the people who did them.
Right. Okay. Now, another lady has a completely different dilemma. Her partner keeps totally silent during the sex, and she would like him to express something. She said, like, ideally, she would like him to talk dirty, but that's fine if he just says something that he's enjoying, like certain things. Or let's make some sounds all together, and the guy is totally silent. And she discussed it with him, but it didn't work.
Well, discussing it, what did he say? I mean, it's hard for me to give advice there. Like she discussed it with him. Is this just the way he is? And then you have to learn to do something.
He feels uncomfortable, like expressing himself with any kind of words or even sounds.
Well, then then they need to agree that that's something he'll learn.
Okay.
Right? So sometimes people think if they tell their partner, I want you to do this, that's the end of it. And the reality is that if somebody has an area where they're really uncomfortable, where they have a lot of shame, they might have to learn. They might have to shame bust.
Right.
Some can be done on their own. They might need to see a counselor. They might need to see a therapist or a coach in order to deal with that, and learn the skill. Talking dirty is a skill.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not everybody can do that. It's not necessary to use some obscenity to do that. It's just whatever within your comfort level, right?
Yeah, but it is a skill. It is something you can practice. And really, the reason people need to practice is that they have shame. And they have to get the shame out of the way in order to be able to do that.
would you recommend practicing it outside of sex, just kind of like, you know, talking dirty to yourself type of thing, like, you know, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean, talking about it with rehearsing it with yourself is good, but people often find rehearsing by yourself difficult. So you probably need somebody separate that you can rehearse it with, that isn't your partner, because usually that's the problem. So some people are fine talking dirty to themselves, but they can't say anything. Once they get into the situation, they can't say a word. In fact, some of the people who I know who have the most creative, smutty minds and write amazing things can't say a word in the bedroom.
Yeah,
it's embarrassment.
It's kind of weird that he doesn't even make a sound of any kind. It does sound to me like it's a factor of shame of some kind.
It might be, and it might also be a trauma. I mean, we don't know, you know?
Yeah.
So that's something that needs to be explored.
Addressed, definitely. Okay, okay. So another question I find very significant, because there are quite a few young women nowadays who don't want to get committed like early on in their lives. And so I have this one fascinating patient. She likes to date. She doesn't want to commit because she's concentrated on her career right now, right? But she finds it difficult in her situation to have a continuous positive sexual experience with a guy for some time without the necessity of changing partners all the time. Oftentimes it happens that they, for some reason, they just don't want to constantly stay with her if there is no such, some kind of level of commitment, right? Interesting things. Some guy will think, oh my God, I want to have that, right? So she doesn't like one night stands or frequent hookups and stuff like that, right? So, but she finds herself like dating one person like for a month or something like that, and then for some reason it doesn't work, and she needs to go back to find somebody, and so, oh, I'm so tired of it.
You know, situations like that, friends with benefits arrangements are good.
Yeah, definitely.
So cultivate a friendship with somebody with the understanding that that's what you're looking for. The other thing is that however she's meeting people, you need to be clear about what it is you're looking for. So profiles on places like Tinder and excuse me, OkCupid and all the other things need to be incredibly clear that this is what you're looking for. You are not looking for a long-term emotional commitment and monogamy.
We have such categories there, not on every site.
No, but you can put when you put up a profile, you get to write a little something. Write that. If you can't, if it doesn't have a category and you're using a particular thing, make sure that that's one of the first things you say. There's
often misunderstood. If you put something like that, then people think that exactly what she wants is a one-night stand, you know?
No, but you can easily clearly say that that's not what you want. That I enjoy sex with somebody that I can get to know, but don't want an emotional commitment. It's very straightforward. I don't like one-night stands. I want a regular sexual partner, but I don't want an emotional relationship where we combine our lives.
Right. Exactly.
That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody to go to the movies with, have dinner with, have sex with, you know, see a show with, have more sex with. That's what I'm looking for. Lighthearted.
Can I have fun? Can I have entertainment in my life with somebody? Sometimes, not necessarily like all the time, being emotionally committed to each other and taking on what you're doing today, like with whom you are today, type of thing, you know? Stuff like that. Okay. So she needs to be clear there in the very beginning of her relationship with this.
Now, that's not going to prevent somebody from falling in love and wanting more from her. You know, that's how it is.
And she can do it as well.
Yes.
No, but you know, that's at this point that's not her goal. Okay. Another lady is asking, is having too much sex or even wanting too much sex damaging for a person? And I try to clarify, like, what do you mean by too much? And she says, like, maybe like more than 4 times a week and winning long sessions and winning like having sex with different people. Could it be psychologically damaging in some kind of way?
there's no such thing as too much sex. It's completely individual.
Right. So she has
so if she's having too much sex for her, right?
Right.
If she's having sex and not really wanting to have sex and not enjoying having sex, and or she's having sex to the detriment of the rest of her life, like she's not taking care of her responsibilities because all she's doing
that's already like taking away. It's like addiction, almost like gambling, right? Like when
So I don't abide sex addiction because it's
me either.
But it's compulsive behavior.
Right.
So if she's having sex compulsively, then she needs to look at it.
What would qualify as compulsive?
Well, compulsive is a feeling thing. It's not an amount of times. Compulsive means that I cannot stop myself from doing something, even though I should be doing something else, or even though I know it's not good for me, or even though I know it's not the appropriate time. And if I try to stop myself from doing it, I get anxious and feel uncomfortable. That's compulsive.
Like instead of being at work, I'm somewhere else having sex.
But when people have compulsions to wash their hands, for example, or not stepping on cracks,
right?
Ask them to stop doing it. They feel very uncomfortable. It's the same thing with compulsive sex.
It's an interesting case because she's also very creative. She's a musician, you know. Thinks that it's somehow connected to her creativity. You know, when she has more sex, she feels more, you know, creative and writing music and stuff like that. I think it can be the part of the brain is somewhat, you know, it's an interesting topic to think about, right?
Yes, I mean, it can be a muse, but I mean, what I tell people is it's only too much if you feel it's too much. Interfering in your life, are you being reckless? Are you, you know, and not being safe?
Somebody else says to you that it's too much. That's a different thing, right?
Yes.
You don't feel it's too much, but somebody else tells you, oh, no, that's too much.
Yeah, that's their moral judgment, and it doesn't bear any resemblance to what you feel and think. And the only time it's a problem when somebody else says is if it's your partner.
Right. So interesting. And there are different. So the last question I have is completely opposite situation. One guy has been married for 10 years. They have 2 kids, and his wife has almost like no desire, very low sex drive, and he has a very hard time like noticing any kind of interest, and he feels like not only he has to initiate the whole time, but oftentimes he gets rejected and it hurts him. He doesn't want to open up the marriage. He wants it to work, or if it doesn't work, ultimately he would think about a divorce, something like that, but he doesn't want to give up. And with her, I mean, at some point they have sex. They have 2 kids after all, right? But he feels that she is doing it only as a duty type of thing, you know, but without,
Okay, so this is not an uncommon problem. There are lots of sexless relationships, and the reasons for them are all different. This sounds like this needs to be explored in therapy or with
maybe there's trauma involved or something like that, right?
I mean,
I'm sorry, is it possible that just her hormonal level is wrong or something like that?
It can be. So I always recommend that people get physically tested at the beginning of stuff like that when we're talking issues of desire. Go to the doctor and rule things out. And see if there's anything that is going on physically that might be affecting your desire. More likely, though, are emotional issues. And so, unless depending on the age, if she's in menopause, then it.
No, she's not. She's like 37.
Okay. So more likely, it's emotional and relationship issues that are getting in the way, and so that's where you've got to approach it from. So sometimes the partner who does want sex is the one to come to therapy first,
right?
And then they get to a place where they can invite their partner in a way that doesn't feel attacking and blaming. And
So basically, it's more than likely it's a psychological problem, some kind of relationship problem of some kind, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's fabulous. Well, thank you so much. I think it was so interesting, incredible, right? And you have some events coming up, and some of them
I do.
are in our area, right?
Yes, some of them are actually in your area. So I will be in Los Angeles from the 24th to the 31st of October, and I have some space for coaching in person. And if people are interested in booking some time, or they think they might be, they can book a free discovery session with me, 30 minutes free to talk about it, by going to my website and going on the contact page. There's the calendar thing to book the free discovery. Alternatively, they can email me.
Okay.
At Dr. Bisbey, that's DrBisbey at the-intimacy-coach.com to ask about session availability. I've got a live event called Ignite Your Fire, which is a weekend retreat where we look at helping people with communication, spicing things up, trying new things. It's a lot of fun. This is going to be in February from the 9th until the 11th in the Los Angeles area. I'm not sure about the venue yet. That's an amazing event. It's a lot of fun. We do, as part of the event, on Friday night, we talk about, we do an intro, and we talk about how our senses are involved in sex. And we have a meal in the dark to get you looking at your senses or experiencing your other senses. Saturday, we cover a variety of topics, including communication. Saturday night, we always have a field trip. Field trips can be to a fetish club. It can be to a dungeon. It can be to a strip club, a burlesque show. We've got drag shows. Yeah, it depends. So I choose in advance, and I'll tell people what we're going to do. We prepare for that. We go, we do it. And on Sunday, part of the time we spend debriefing. From that, we get to look at integrating what we've learned. Also, there's an open space in the schedule for the participants to suggest what I should cover. I bring a wide variety of toys so we can introduce them to new kinds of sex toys and some different ideas of how to use sex toys. Now, you stay abreast throughout this whole thing.
That sounds very interesting. So how will this, like, information about the venue and specifics about that later?
There will be. If you are interested in signing up, again, give me an email. Also, I will provide you with a link that you can put with the notes for this presentation. That's for the sign up page, which will have all the details with the exception of venue.
Right.
Because it's probably the last thing I'm going to decide. It's limited to 30 people.
And it's a weekend, right?
And it's a weekend. It starts Friday night and ends Sunday.
How appropriate, right? Before Valentine's Day, right?
Yes, great fun. Absolutely great fun. And it's a great Valentine's gift. I've also got an online thing starting. It's a 10-week course called Create Your Sexual Bucket List. And we meet 1 hour a week from the 16th of October to do some group work and explore things. And there are playbooks during the week for you to do some exercises and email contact. And all the details of that are on my website, theintimacycoach.com. And I will, again, provide you with a link that takes people directly to
very interesting. I think a lot of people would be interested in that. So thank you so much.
For having me. It was great fun.
Absolutely, it was great. Okay, my friends, that was great, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed this seminar, the questions that Dr. Lori Beth Bisbey answered for you as much as I did. She's great. And I'll make sure I'll post all her upcoming events and all the resources that she mentioned on a page of this seminar. And this is just the beginning of my upcoming mini webcasts. I will have many interesting guests, many interesting questions, many interesting topics covered. I myself will answer some questions and cover some interesting topics. So you're very welcome to ask me those questions and to write to me, and all the information about how to contact me is on the page as well. For now, thank you very much and have a great day. That was Lana Cole. For now, thank you very much and have a great day. That was Lana Cole.